Hello and good evening. I hope you all are having a good week. A very warm welcome to all the people attending this webinar today on performance boosting ETL workloads using Rapids on Spark 3.0. This masterclass will be on NVIDIA's end-to-end GPU acceleration to Apache Spark 3.0 and understanding the true potential of this technology, which allows data scientists and machine learning engineers to be able to apply GPU acceleration to their ETL workloads. To lead this webinar, we have with us Mr. Saurav Agarwal, the Senior Enterprise Architect, Big Data, Advanced Analytics and ML at NVIDIA, who has around 10 years of data industry experience implementing AI and analytic solution on big data platforms. Saurav has also been part of multiple large-scale projects covering end-to-end data landscape solutions for industries. The session will be followed by 10 minutes Q&A after Saurav's presentation. So please drop in your questions on the questions tab or on the chat window. So without any further delay, I would like to welcome Saurav to this webinar session. Hi Saurav, and over to you.
Thank you, Sejuti, and good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for your introduction, Sejuti. So needless to say, I work for NVIDIA as the Senior Enterprise Architect, and my main focus of work here is data engineering and data processing on GPUs and how we can performance boost data engineering and data processing workflows on GPUs. So, so without much ado, I'll start with the session. Welcome everyone, and the agenda for today's session will start with the introduction to Spark and Rapids. So what is Rapids all about on Spark? We know there is a entire ecosystem around data engineering, but we'll focus on Spark in this particular session. And I will also let you know how the performance boosting works internally, some of the internals and technicalities over it. I'll be sharing some performance benchmarking results, and I'll be sharing some insights on the performance improvement you can get after you follow the tech tools and techniques I'm going to share with you today. And last but not the least, if you are working on Cloudera, how can you enable that data engineering workflows to be enabled with acceleration on Cloudera stack as well. And last but not the least, we'll have some Q&A sessions for any doubts and clarifications. Though definitely, if you have something in between the slides, I will try to see the questions in the chat box or the Q&A box, and I will let you know all your questions. So, Spark is broadly adopted technology, and it has become a de facto tool for data processing, data engineering, and all kind of compute for data. Because of its popularity, it is getting implemented in all kinds of systems and all kinds of use cases across industries. So be it consumer internet industry, we have recommendation system, advertising analytics, audience segmentation, be it financial services, we have fraud detection, understanding fraud for transaction or a fraud of a particular account. Then we have risk analysis, credit risk analysis, if a particular person is riskier to give some credit or loan to, portfolio management. So what kind of instruments are good to be given according to the risk profile and the risk appetite for a particular person. Based on that, some insights around that. Then we have for telecom, network quality, IoT analytics, transitioning to 5G systems, so enabling telecom companies to transition to 5G and relevant systems. And last but not the least, we have use cases across federal where we can do threat detection to the organizations or in countries, intelligent analytics, AI, geospatial analytics on the demographic and geographic details around the population of the country. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is just an indicative list where all Spark is getting adopted. So if you are someone new to Spark, definitely you should try it out, and you should be very proficient in it. And nowadays, the demand of the industry is not only just you should know how to write code, a good code in Spark, but also you should know how to optimize the pipeline, how to make Spark the best performant, and how to reduce the cost of Spark clusters and increase the performance of the data pipeline. So without much ado, let's start with understanding the data pipeline of an organization. So I was talking about Spark and data pipeline. So let's understand how a typical data pipeline of an organization looks like. So we have a lot of data sources which can be real-time. Those can be real-time data sources. Those can be batch data sources. Real-time data sources can include like IoT. Batch can include like something like MySQL or similar RDBMS kind of data sources. So all these data sources needs to get ingested into the Spark cluster, or maybe some kind of distributed storage like SDFS, S3, or in cloud, Azure or GCP, etc., etc. So no matter wherever it is stored, it needs some processing to be done. And that processing, the initial processing which it needs to be done, is called the ETL processing. So the ETL processing is not only limited to the extraction of the data, that means this ingestion or extraction of the data from this multiple types of sources, but also processing the data and understanding, making the data more understandable by the consumers and by the following processes. So if any data is not needed, we can discard that data as well, and we can remove those data, and we can check for the data quality and data cleaning issues, and we can do that in this process itself. Once the data is stored after cleaning and doing basic data quality checks, what we can do is we can do various transformations around it, maybe joining the tables, aggregating tables, and so on and so forth. So those kind of jobs can be called as maybe analytics jobs. So analytics jobs are mostly related to data transformation, data aggregation, and data getting some insights around the data. Okay, so basically, if we need all these things, we run analytics jobs on top of it, which can run hourly, daily, weekly, or maybe ad hoc as well, right, by various business analysts. Then after that, what we need to do is we need further things on top of it. Suppose if we have a use case around AI or data science, so not only just basic analytics, which can be done using SQL, we have to do some advanced analytics using machine learning and deep learning techniques. So for that also, we need to further transform the data and further run some ETL jobs, and then do the training and inferencing for that data. So suppose I want to run an XGBoost model to predict some kind of customer churn behavior, etc. So I still need to run through training and inference method. And apart from that, we can have some traditional legacy-based systems like data warehouses, which can store some structured data. So we can also extract the data and put the data inside the data lake, so that all the data can be used for analytics and further machine learning and deep learning purposes. So we can have some real-time batch sources, we can have some traditional data warehouses, and then all this data get ingested in the data lake, which is nothing but SDFS or S3 or Azure storage or GCP Google storage. So we can run all this, we can take all this data and run some analytics jobs or further ETL jobs to do some data science on top of it. So here, in this case, the motive of me explaining these steps is to understand where we can use Spark. So we can use Spark almost in each and every step I was saying. Number one step we can use for raw data processing, like basic extraction of the data. Second, we can use for analytics for unstructured, structured data in the data lake. Third, we can use Spark for loading the data from the traditional data warehouses to the data lake. And finally, we can also use Spark for pre-processing for creating machine learning models for training and inferencing. Okay, so all these steps can be done in Spark, and now if you understand what I told, it can be almost 80% of the data pipeline. We are using Spark as a main tool of our use. Now, we all know how Spark began to get popular in the mainstream data engineering world when we already had Hadoop. So Hadoop was there long back. It started with Google and Yahoo and similar companies creating various open source projects and publishing it around the world to make people contribute to it, grow around it. And there we saw something called Hadoop and MapReduce being very popular framework. Like someone who started their career on big data might know about these concepts. So at that moment, the main advantage of using Hadoop was to process huge volume of data and also unstructured data. So these two things were not possible in RDBMS, but were now possible in Hadoop. However, what happened was with time, people started comparing the performance of Hadoop with the traditional RDBMS kind of systems, and they saw that even if we are using Hadoop, we are paying a lot for multi-node clusters, like scaling up to thousands of nodes and all. Still, there was not expected performance from the perspective of the latency. Suppose I need to load data from system A to system B, do some transformation, and then do some aggregation on top of it. So the Hadoop and MapReduce were pretty slow in that because they use disk for the input output. Okay, because they used the hard disk for the input output, and they did not have any provision of iterative computing. So you could do it, but it was very lengthy process, and it was very cumbersome process as a developer and as well as a user who are consuming that data. So it took around, say, suppose you have terabytes of data, it can go up to days to run a MapReduce job. So this issue was resolved by Apache Spark. What Spark did was two things mainly. One was it reduced the dependency on the disk to do the I/O. It completely did the intermediate I/O in the RAM of the system, and we know that at least the RAM is more than 100x or maybe more than that better read-write performant as compared to the hard disk. So if you see the read-write speed of RAM versus the HDD or SSD, it is at least like maybe 50x to 100x performant. Okay, so because of that, because the underlying hardware got replaced from SDFS to something called Spark, there was a huge performance boost of the workloads and workflows. So that workflows which were running for days, they completed in hours, which were running for hours, they completed in minutes or seconds. So this was the biggest paradigm shift in the industry, and then it is still continuing. So Spark is the most popular, as I said, but of lately there is a need of more performance optimization. People are trying day in day out to do further performance optimization on top of Spark. They are trying each and every technique of doing. In every new release of Spark, we see that some of the new features of Spark, core new features of Spark, are nothing but performance improvement techniques which have been released by the open source Spark community. So the vision of NVIDIA is that the next era of acceleration of big data or data engineering systems on top of Spark will be the Spark GPU era. It will not be anything different than Spark. Definitely Spark will be the base, but it will be Spark on GPU. So here we have the hard disk playing a major role. Here we have the RAM playing the major role, and here the GPUs will play the major role. So here also we'll see some level of hardware involved for the acceleration. So this is the vision of NVIDIA. So if you see here, Matti Zaharia, who is the creator of Apache Spark and who is the co-founder of Databricks, he has categorically said that the NVIDIA contributions to GPU computing on top of Spark will lead to faster data pipelines, model training, scoring, and breakthroughs insights with Apache Spark on Databricks. So definitely Databricks already supports this, and they are pretty conversant about it. So let's understand what is Spark 3 on NVIDIA GPUs. So first, let's understand what is the need of that. First is it is reducing your execution time. So faster execution time, you will have accelerated data preparation. You will quickly move to next stages of the pipeline. You can focus on most critical activities. Should more focus on critical activities rather than just watching the job to be get over or just waiting for the job to get over. So that is a big headache as a developer or as an architect for me as well. So the second advantage would be streamline analytics to AI. So you can orchestrate end-to-end pipelines. If you are running something like machine learning, you are running data engineering, you can do the entire end-to-end stuff on a single pipeline, and that will lead to a faster end-to-end performance as well. And on top of it, you can use the same infrastructure for Spark ETL as well as MLDL workloads. And finally, all this will lead to completing of the jobs with less hardware. So you are going to pay less, whether you are on cloud or whether you have on premise. You can do more with less. So these are the main motivation why you would want to understand more about Spark on NVIDIA GPUs. So first of all, let's understand what features have come in the latest version of Spark. If you're not on Spark 3, let's first understand why you should move to Spark 3 at the first place. So we know that a lot of people are, or a lot of companies are still on Spark 2.x frameworks, but let's understand what are the motivation behind migrating. If you want to migrate to Spark 3, what should be the primary motivations? So first is you will get a lot of performance benefits. There is something called adaptive query execution, so AQE, which has been enabled in Spark 3. There is a dynamic partition pruning, DPP. This is enabled in Spark 3. So basically, I'll not go much into detail, but these are the, like, at a high level, we can say that these are the optimizations with the Spark open source community has brought in the Spark 3 version, which will enable faster execution. And by default, without using GPUs, there are benchmarks available on the internet done by Databricks and related companies where you will directly get 2x performance benefit on TPC benchmarks. So there is a TPC organization which publishes the benchmarks. So on TPC benchmarks, it has been seen that just by migrating from Spark 2 to Spark 3, you will get 2x performance based on the TPC benchmark queries. On top of that, there is better graph support. If you are running graph analytics, use better graph support, better Kubernetes support. So this is one of the most important stuff. So everyone might have heard about this term called Kubernetes, which has become a very known tool for enterprise orchestration and management of resources. So Spark 3.1 intrinsically or inherently supports Kubernetes. So no need to run or get dependent on Yarn as a resource manager. You can use Kubernetes and integrate all your applications, be it non-database applications or database applications, into a same Kubernetes cluster. And finally, there is improved language support, Python, Scala, Java, all these are supported in a better way. In terms of GPUs, GPUs has become the first-class citizens for acceleration. So Spark 3 inherently supports GPUs. It supports acceleration of the end-to-end pipelines using GPUs. And on top of that, you can integrate the ETL and the deep learning or ML pipeline into a single pipeline. So initially, what was there in Spark 2.x, if you see on the right-hand side, if you needed to do some data preparation and ETL, you need to have a separate cluster. You need to run a CPU powered cluster and orchestrate it and use it in a separate way. And then you should have a shared storage. It can be anything like SDFS, S3, etc., etc. Then you needed a separate cluster for model training and inferencing. So this led to a siloed approach of infrastructure, which led to a huge problems in terms of management of the infrastructure or utilization of the infrastructure. Because suppose when there is a pipeline which runs 30 minutes here and maybe 30 minutes here, so after it has completed 30 minutes here, it will start this particular job. So in this 30 minutes, this will be remaining idle, and in this 30 minutes, this particular cluster will be remaining idle. So there are ways of improving that. However, it is not the best case scenario, and there's a lot of work around to fix that kind of issues. So what Spark 3 will enable you is you can use the same cluster for ETL, for deep learning, machine learning techniques. So there is the utilization will go up, the wastage of resources will come down, and also management from the operations perspective, from the development perspective, will be much easier. So I'll take some questions if anyone has any questions till now. Okay, there is one question called we recently moved away from Spark to Flink because of its excellent unified streaming interface. Do you think Spark 3 is better than Flink? So I would not compare directly head-to-head Spark and Flink. Flink also does a lot of good data stream processing. However, if you want to do batch processing, if you want to do machine learning, if you want to do deep learning, if you want to do graph analytics, Flink cannot do that, right? So yes, you can compare Flink stream processing with Spark streaming as such, but that will be a very minuscule part of what Spark can do, right? So based on your goals, you can see there is no head-to-head comparison because it's not apple-to-apple comparison in my perspective. Okay, now let's move ahead to the next part, understanding what NVIDIA brings to the GPU acceleration to Apache Spark. So we know that like GPUs are enabled in the latest version, but how NVIDIA has further contributed to do further acceleration, just not using GPUs, but using them in the most performant way. So, so first, if you see, you can use existing unmodified code. So if you are already on Spark 3, you can use the same code already. No need to migrate to any GPU supported code or something like that. Just that your code should support Spark 3. That's it. It doesn't need to migrate to any other supported code. Spark features that are not available on GPU can run transparently on CPU. So if you have something which is not everything is supported on GPU, so it doesn't mean that you have to create separate cluster for CPU, separate cluster for GPU. In the same cluster, you can just add GPUs on top of CPUs, and you can use that seamlessly. Okay, so for example, here if you see, as of now, the initial release is supporting Spark data frames, Spark SQL, and machine learning training and deep learning training frameworks like XGBoost, TensorFlow, PyTorch, Horobot. However, it is not supporting dataset, it is not supporting RDD and MLlib and Spark streaming, right? So they can continue running on CPUs. It's not that we are saying that you create a separate CPU cluster, a separate GPU cluster, only bring those jobs which are suitable for GPUs in the GPU cluster. It's not like that. If you want to continue running things on CPU, you can do that. So all this is possible because of the underlying Rapids framework, where we have various CUDA-based libraries. You know, the main advantage of NVIDIA GPUs are the CUDA architecture, where it enables a lot of parallel processing and a lot of throughput, which enables thousands of cores working together to make that process very fast, right? So that is the compute part of it. When it comes to networking also, we have something called UCX. I'll come to that in detail, but yes, that also improves the performance a lot from the networking side, because we know that in Spark, there's a lot of shuffle of the data from one node to other. So in those terms, we can leverage the power of accelerated networking as well on top of accelerated compute. Now coming to Rapids Accelerated for Apache Spark, how it can work. We have the SQL and the data frame API enabled with GPUs. So if it is GPU enabled, that particular operation and data type, so it works on both operation and data type level. Like for example, group by. Okay, so group by on ORC data. So this is supported. Yes, if this is supported, then call out the Rapids, run it on GPUs, and do the acceleration. Otherwise, you can just run the standard operation that is completely running on CPUs. Okay. In terms of this was on the compute side. In terms of shuffle of the data, so if we have the enabled UCX library, so what it does is it does a custom implementation of Spark Shuffle. It doesn't use the traditional Spark Shuffle. It uses some technologies like RDMA and GPU to GPU direct communication. So in short, I can explain that in detail in the coming slides, but in short, it uses the accelerated transfer of data from one node to other node to do the acceleration on the shuffle side as well. Okay, so on top of it, what NVIDIA has done is it has further added. So there is a modification of the Spark open source code, as well as there is a new entire plugin developed as a new open source project called Rapid Spark, which you can see in GitHub as well. So that particular project also enables a lot of things. First is Rapid's acceleration for Spark 3, which intercepts and accelerates SQL and data frame operations. Second is it also has changed or repurposed the Catalyst query optimizer. We know it is an optimizer to like create a best query plan and best DAG for the fastest performance. So it has done a columnar processing support. So it is there is no longer need of doing row by row processing. And if you do columnar processing, we always know that huge chunk of data can directly be sent to the GPU, processed it, and hence the throughput will increase and the performance will be better. And then we have Spark Shuffle implementation that is a custom implementation, as I said. And finally, it is there is also a GPU aware scheduling. So that means that it places GPU accelerated workloads directly onto the servers containing GPU resources. So suppose there are multiple nodes. This node has GPU, this node has GPU, but this node only has CPU. This only has CPU. So what it will do is wherever we have GPUs, it will automatically identify that in the cluster which nodes has GPU. It will run on those nodes, and it will not run on the nodes where we have GPU. So if there are any CPU-based operations, suppose some operations which are not supported on GPU, so they can continue running on CPUs. So these are the tickets which has been worked upon. So there is a link to it. The tickets of Apache of accelerated aware scheduling, where we can natively assign accelerated resources like GPU, and we can do columnar data processing. We can do stage level scheduling. So stage level scheduling is also added in the latest version of Spark, which means that at the stage level also within the task, you can accelerate a part of the stage in part of the task in say one task in GPU, one task in CPU. So that will further improve your end-to-end goal of making the pipeline faster, because some of the operations which are running on GPUs will run on GPUs, and the other will run on CPU seamlessly. So there will be no failure of the job. There will be no failure of any things in production, as well as wherever it finds that this particular stage or task can be accelerated, it will accelerate at that particular level. For you, it might be very important to know that what accelerators like where all this Rapids accelerated for Spark is supported. So it is supported in Apache Spark community release. If you download the community release, it will be supported. Plus, there will be a Rapids plugin which is available in GitHub. So you have to download both of these. I will tell you where to go just after this slide. And then we have Databricks machine learning runtime, which is also supported in Rapids. GCP Dataproc cluster is supported in Rapids. EMR is supported. Cloudera is supported, and also very soon, I think it's the Synapse, Azure Synapse is also getting supported, and SD Insight is also getting supported with Rapids. So one of the customer testimonial, you can see that Adobe had implemented this. They got 7x performance boost. They saved 90% cost on Databricks. So whatever they were paying, then suppose $100, they ended up paying just maybe $10 or something like that. So they saved 90% cost here. So if there are any questions, I'll take it before I move to the next section. Okay, are shuffles required for communication between CPU and GPU? No, there is no need of any shuffle to be precise, which is needed for CPU to GPU communication. However, yes, there is a bandwidth needed. So suppose some of the operators are running on GPU, some of the operators are running on CPU. So there can be some of the instances where the data has to travel from CPU back to GPU or GPU back to CPU. So there can be some kind of back and forth happen. But at the end of the day, if that is getting accelerated on GPUs, nothing better than that, right? So there is no shuffle to be precise, but yes, there can be host to memory. That means there can be transfers of data between CPU and GPU. Now let's understand through one technical example how this accelerator works at a high level for some of the features. So first of all, let's understand the columnar, the repurposing of the CPU plan to the GPU plan. So if you see, we have a query where we have select and we have group by, and based on the select and group by, we create one plan. Like we create a logical plan, then we create a physical plan, then we finally give the output. Okay, so here if you see, I don't know if you can see, but let me try to explain that in a verbal way. That CPU physical plan, it starts with scanning of the Parquet data file, and then what happens is it goes to columnar data flow, and it does some hash aggregate for the because of the group bys. And then we have data exchange. That means some shuffle is happening. Then again, some hash aggregate is applied, and finally the output is seen. However, if you see the comparison between the CPU and GPU, here the plan says that the physical plan you need not execute in CPU anymore, but you execute in GPU. But in addition to that, you convert the RDD of row to RDD of columnar batch. If you convert the RDD of row to RDD of columnar batch, it will improve the performance a lot in terms of maximizing the throughput. So the new physical plan will involve columnar data exchange, columnar hash aggregate, GPU hash aggregate rather than CPU. So everything will be based on the maximizing the throughput of the data through the columnar approach. So if you do row by row, we know that it is slow. If you take all that together and send it to GPU, it is really fast, right? So that is the whole purpose of accelerating, or like that is the whole concept which has been used to accelerate this particular GPU physical plan. So this is the head-to-head comparison where we do reading of the Parquet file, which is common. But here we see that in CPU, we first convert to row format, but here we directly use the columnar data format if it is in Parquet. If it is in other formats, it gets converted to columnar format. And then there is a GPU shuffle. Here it is a CPU shuffle. So here the accelerated shuffle will be used, UCX, and here normal shuffle will be used. Then the combining of the shuffle data will be done. Then finally, writing of the Parquet file will be done. So here the main thing is it is done row by row, and it is done in columnar batch, hence increasing the performance a lot. Now let's understand the shuffle part of it, because some of you have that question, and some of the previous decks slides were based on that. So here, if you see, we are using one open source library called Unified Communication X, or it is also called UCX, which is used for abstracting communication transports. It can use so the normal data transfer happens on the TCP method. So it's called transfer control protocol. But however, if you use UCX, it can also use other protocols like RDMA and GPU based protocols. And it enables zero copy GPU memory transfers. So there's no need of copying the data from here to there. It just transfers the data. So there is no need of additional overhead. And then it supports a new kind of hardware to connect between two nodes called InfiniBand or RoCE. So this is a hardware change. Like RoCE is lesser change as compared to InfiniBand. InfiniBand are specialized optical based interconnects between the nodes, which enables 300 to up to 600 Gbps data transfer. And also RoCE also enables. Traditional Ethernet is very slow. It can go to tens and maybe in 2 digits only maximum. But here in InfiniBand and RoCE, it can go up to 3 digits or more for data transfer per second. So what happens in Spark Shuffle? As I was saying again and again, the TCP-based shuffle is used for CPU-centric, which you might be using nowadays. So here, if you see, for CPU-centric data movement, there is a whole lot of involvement of PCI bus. So if you have to go from GPU to CPU, you have to go through this bus. Okay, so you don't have to. You cannot directly communicate between GPU to GPU if you want to do shuffle of the data. So thereby creating a lag between the transfer of the data. So suppose I want to send one data from here to here because that is the need for shuffle. So what will happen is I have to first send this data from here to CPU, then this CPU will decide and again send it to the other GPU. So thereby it can create a lot of overhead because that is really slow. Okay. The GPU centric data movement, what it will do is either if you have NVLink, so this is again another hardware level GPU to GPU communication. If you have something like a DGX A100 or similar hardware where NVLink is also present, so there we can directly use this for GPU to GPU communication. And even if you don't have it, then what will happen is you don't have to go through the PCIe bus. You can directly go from one GPU to the network and then or use the direct storage in the local mode in the GPU itself, and this kind of network can communicate back to this GPU. So this data can go from here to network and then from network back to the GPU one. So this is how the accelerated data shuffle can happen without the involvement of CPUs. So from the hardware perspective, as I was saying, there are two main hardware, InfiniBand or Rocky, which is optimized for UCX. So that is going up to 300 or more Gbps. NVLink is further optimized. It can go up to 500 or more 600 Gbps. And you can have friendly PCI topology. So GPU and NICs connected with PCI switches instead of root. So these are more hardware level. So changes which your infrastructure team might know or your cloud provider might know about. But yes, from the developer or architect perspective, you should know that there is some hardware acceleration happening from the networking side as well. So if any questions till now, let me check. Okay, we have some Spark workloads on Glue. Can this help accelerating it? Definitely, if those support EMR, if those support EMR, then yes, EMR is Rapids is supported on EMR, given that you use Spark 3.0. Okay, now let's understand some more details about the technicalities of the various features. So stage level scheduling, as I was saying, that first of all, we needed to have separate stages, separate processes for ETL and machine learning. So now what can happen is the ETL stage can seamlessly run on GPU directly. Okay, this was the initial stage, but right now both can run on GPU, and so hence we needed some new feature around it. So this was enabled with the ticket 27495, which specified resource requirements as per the operation we are doing on the RDD. So each operation will be either supported or not supported. So if that particular operation is supported, then it can run on GPU seamlessly. So dynamically Spark will allocate containers to meet the resource requirements, and Spark will schedule tasks on the appropriate containers. Some containers will go to CPU, some will go to GPU based on the support. For the columnar processing, as I was saying, and I explained the physical plan. So 27396 was implemented, where the Catalyst API was changed to modify and take RDD of columnar batch instead of RDD of row. As I said, if you are already on Spark 3, no need to change any code. And if you are something on EMR or Cloudera or something like that, then just you have to add some configuration properties in the same code. So you can add the GPU amount, number of GPU you want to use for that. There is a discovery script which is available in the GitHub, which is same for all. Then there is a GPU amount, that how much resource GPU amount you want to allocate to that particular job. And also at the task level, also you can allocate some of the GPU amount to the task level as well. And you can start seamlessly running on GPUs by just passing this. And if you want to monitor that if your particular job is using GPU or not, you just go to the executor tabs of your Spark Web UI and you enable this resource check point. And once you enable it, you will start getting that, okay, GPUs are being used for my particular executor, hence it is GPU accelerated. You can verify that, and you can also see the maybe some kind of monitoring of the GPU utilization from here as well. Okay, now coming to the performance results. So some of the benchmarking we have done. So there is one of the benchmarking we have done on the Fannie Mae's mortgage data set for 200 GB data. So where we found that 3.8x improvement was done from if we compared with the cloud T4 GPU, Tesla 4 GPU versus, and we compare that and run with a R4 2x large CPU based cluster. So we got 3.8x performance improvement. So this ETL involved group by, case when statements, joins, etc., etc. So 50% cost saving. So this, suppose the cost of this particular job on CPU was $10. So here it completed in $5. So other benchmarkings we have done is we have done the TPC DS on our own framework called NVIDIA DS. So NVIDIA DS is our adaptation of the industry standard data science benchmark. And we ran 100 plus queries on 1 TB of data, 3 TB of raw data converted to 1 TB of Parquet data. And we used various types of clusters. So these clusters involved the 3 types of mainly. On-premise, we used the EGX clusters, which are normal node-based cluster. We use 8-node cluster with 2 CPUs and 2 GPUs, 800 GPUs. The total RAM was 0.5 TB and storage was NVMe based, and the cost was $42,000. Versus we compared it with the DGX where it had 8 GPUs and one CPU here, and then compared it with which is very costly, $239,000. And we compared it with Dataproc where we had 8 node GPUs. We used for driver N1 standard 4, and for worker we used high memory 16. So 16 GB T4 per executor was used. Total RAM was 104 GB. Yeah, all that was enabled on cloud as well. So what performance improvement we got? So we got at least for all the, when we take an average of all the performance across all the 100 plus queries, so 3.21x faster performance with a cost ratio of 0.52. So we have to pay 52% of the cost that we pay for CPU, and we got 3.21x faster performance. For DGX, we got 2.19x. For GCP, we got 1.91x. The most performant was the EGX 8 node based on-premise cluster. This is nothing but on-premise, and this is node based. This is a single large, we can say large fat node. Okay, so we can say large fat node with 8 GPUs in a single node, and this is we all know how cloud works. If we further enable shuffle, accelerated shuffle, that means the InfiniBand or Rocky. So there we saw further improvement of 1.23x faster performance on EGX cluster as well. So some of the queries are not faster. Why? Because of the law that says that if we have a lot of shuffle, then the further improvement can be seen. But if we don't have shuffle, we'll not see that much improvement. So that was one of the reasons, because shuffle further increases the performance using the networking as well. Some of the queries were slow because there were small data size. It is not meant for small data sizes, like in MB or maybe even 1 GB, 2 GB also. Then we had host memory data transfer. That means CPU to GPU communication was there, so that was adding to the latency to it. And then there was some very small aggregate results. So there, if you are processing huge volume, suppose 1 TB data, and your aggregate result has just 2 rows, then it doesn't make sense, right? It's very slow. So that was for some of the downside of it. And yes, some of the queries were not supported on GPUs, which ran on CPUs. But some of the queries were really fast because there was a lot of task level parallelism. So this query inherently supported data parallelism, and it uses more consistent amount of memory and reduces the total memory in memory for operations like sort, So if you have that kind of operations, it will be really very fast. For cloud, it is good, but is not as better as on-prem, because number one, data locality, you know that it's not necessarily on the same node or same rack always. So data proc external shuffle has the stability. You can use that. And then there is a performance in the T4 versus A100. So you have to use the best in class GPU like A100 to get the best performance out of it. And then finally the networking part of it. So UCX was not enabled for GCP, so hence adding to the slowness. So some of the queries which are really fast, so like IO bound and fast, had a lot of Spark Shuffle, were really fast on GPUs and on the Rapids framework. Okay, so from Cloudera perspective, if you are using Cloudera, let's understand Cloudera is now officially supporting Spark on Rapids, both for ETL and machine learning, deep learning workflows. So all the data loading, data preparation, model training, serving, monitoring, everything is GPU accelerated now. So you have to enable CDS service for Spark 3. So there's a service called CDS 3, which you have to enable on the CDP clusters to enable Rapids. Some of the benchmarkings we got on Cloudera, where we saw that we got we did a customer churn use case, and where we saw that the performance is going on A30 GPU per server. We are getting 5x performance of 1.5x the cost. So we are paying 1.5x the cost, but because of this 5x performance, we are at the end of the day having 3x total cost of ownership, 3x better total cost of ownership, because we are able to run the jobs much faster, even if we are paying a lot more. Okay, so same applies for A100 also. So here also we are getting 3x cost, because here the performance, though the cost is increased, but the performance is also increased. So if you have a lot of AI based requirements, a lot of machine learning, deep learning, I would suggest you to go with A100. And if you have a lot of ETL kind of workflow, you can go with A30. So this was a detailed benchmarking which we did. So we took some of the data from customer billing events, phone features, internet features, account properties, customer demographic data. We did some pre-processing of the data. We did some analytics on top of data to understand customer behavior patterns. And then we did some customer churn prediction. So first we labeled the data, then we did some customer churn prediction using XGBoost model on top of the Spark. So there we got, for ETL, we got around maybe 2.5x performance, and for analytics and machine learning, we got around 6x of performance. So on an average, we got 4.3x performance here. So yeah, I think this was the end-to-end thing which I wanted to explain you. Let me take some questions now, so that we have a good understanding of any of the things, concepts which you may not have understood to the best. So yeah, we'll start taking the questions. Okay, does structured streaming support computation on GPU? No, as of now, structured streaming does not support computation. So as I said, only data frame Spark SQL is supported. Yeah, any other questions we have?
Saurabh, there's one more question. What are the optimization technique? I am not really sure if you have taken them already. Used in the reducing resource consumption and improving the processing time.
Yeah, so as I was explaining that, for example, you are using, just taking an example, that you are using this this particular, you are running this particular use case of customer churn, and you are using one CPU cluster which has say 2x32 core AMD CPUs. Okay, and you are comparing that with another cluster which has one A100 GPU. So here, if you see, we are adding to the to the cost, yes, for sure, because we are adding additional GPU, which is which is adding to the cost of that entire node, suppose 1.8x, but at the same time, you are improving the performance of your job up to 5x, right? Be it the same number. Suppose this is a 8-node cluster, this is also 8-node cluster. But this is suppose costing you $100. Just an example, this is costing you $180. So even if you are paying $80 extra, your job, which was taking say maybe I would say maybe 1 hour, is getting finished in say 5x, means that it is getting finished in around 12 minutes, right? So 12 minutes, you are saving 48 minutes there. So 48 minutes, what you can do, you can run other jobs and you can further improve the performance. Or what you can do is you can increase the parallelism. Suppose you are able to run only 10 jobs per hour, just an example, you will be able to run 20 jobs or 30 jobs per hour. So your need of the number of nodes will reduce if you want same performance. Suppose what you want is, I don't want to improve the performance, but I want the same to run on GPUs, but I want to reduce the number of nodes, because that adding more and more nodes is adding to the cost. So you can say replace one three CPU nodes with one GPU node at an average, right? So thereby you can increase or maybe you can save a lot of cost there. So that is how you can see from the perspective of cost saving and performance improvement.
Oh, great. I think there are some more questions that we can take up.
Yeah.
Sudarshan is asking about how is the licensing?
Okay, so there is no licensing. This is completely open source. You don't have to pay extra paise for it, because it is completely open source project. You can download and use it if you want. But if you are using Cloudera or Databricks, you have to pay for Cloudera and Databricks usage. You don't have to pay for Rapids usage or this plugin usage, right? And then yes, at the end of the day, it needs a GPU as a hardware. So you have to pay for the GPU that comes with the cluster, right? So the only cost you have to pay is the GPU cost. There is no software cost involved in this acceleration.
Correct. We have another one. Is there a benchmark with Kubernetes as scheduler? The cost might reduce further.
So yeah, so we have benchmarks, but we don't publish that, because Kubernetes will also lead to a lot of variables. So you can say that, see, at the end of the day, scheduler doesn't matter here, because whenever we run these jobs, we make sure that nothing else is running on the cluster. So it's not that we are using the cluster parallelly for many other benchmarks. We are using solely for this benchmark. The only advantage in real time or real production scenario for enterprises can be that the same cluster can be used for ETL, machine learning, application hosting, or any third-party things as well. So thereby you can reduce the or maybe utilize the entire cluster in a better manner, thereby save the cost. But it is all dependent on the enterprise. So we don't have any benchmarks, though we say this is an advantage, but we don't have any benchmarks to prove that.
Correct. Any use case that you have tried with Kafka? I hope it would certainly help the consumers in Kafka.
No, as I said, Spark streaming is not supported on top of GPUs. So Kafka, there is an alternative to Kafka called cuStreams. If you might see, it is also open source. It is based on Rapids itself. So you can try cuStreams if you are seeing or you want to accelerate something on the PubSub kind of things, but we don't have support for Spark stream processing in GPUs as of now.
Correct. I hope that answers the query. There's one more. Skanda is asking, is it possible to run CUDA ML libraries directly inside Spark codebase?
CUDA ML libraries like directly, it's, as I said, a Horoword you have. If Horoword supports that, you can run that. There is TensorFlow support, there is Keras support, there is PyTorch support. So if it is based on that, it can support. Otherwise, I don't think it will support on Spark.
Correct. Is there a way to see if there is a passage of data from GPU to CPU when using the Databricks?
Yeah, this one I have already answered that yes, it is there, and how I have explained in detail as well in one of the slides, I think. Yeah.
Okay. If there are more questions, attendees, please drop in on the questions tab. We have few more minutes that sort of can answer a few of them before we wrap up the session. So. We can quickly check if any of the questions that you have not answered as of yet.
Yeah, I'm just checking the Q&A box. We recently moved away from, okay, I answered this. There is no need of SDFS as a base. Somebody is asking, do we still need SDFS? You can use SDFS, you can use S3, you can use any storage provider. We don't have any issues on that.
Also, many of the attendees are asking for the presentation. So I'm going to quickly add the presentation on the handout section for each of you guys to have an access. Also, the recording of the session will be available on Analytics India Magazine YouTube channel soon. Saurabh, there is one more question. Does it come with a default serializer?
Yes, so as I said, there is no serializer as such, but there is a plugin called the Rapids plugin, so which has a lot of features, as I said, I was explaining you, so which will enable you to do all these things like columnar processing on GPUs, stage level scheduling on GPUs, and so on and so forth. So yeah, from serializer, deserializer, we don't have any specialized serializer. We do have custom shuffle manager, because we want to use the additional hardware like InfiniBand or Rocky, but we don't have any custom serializer as such. There's one question around, is it possible to run cuML libraries directly inside Spark code base? So, no, for cuML, you have to run it separately. Spark, in Spark ML, you can run XGBoost, and you can run XGBoost on GPUs, and you can also run deep learning libraries on GPUs. cuML libraries, if you want to scale the cuML libraries, you have to use something like Dask rather than Spark. Okay.
I've also shared the presentation in the handout section. So if any one of you wants to have an access to that, they can quickly download the presentation from the handout section. Also, Saurabh, if you want to share your contact details or LinkedIn profile with the attendees, if any one of them wants to get in touch with you, they can.
Yeah, sure. What I'm doing is I'm sharing my email ID and LinkedIn profile as well. So if you are interested to do a POC for your company and you have a lot of requirement for acceleration, please reach out to me. So I'll just ping in the chat box.
Sure.
Yeah, so this is my LinkedIn profile, and this is my email ID. I've just been on the chat box, so feel free to reach out to me in case you want to further explore accelerated computing on Spark. Yeah.
Okay. I think that brings us to the end of this session. As usual, Saurabh, great to have you here and amazing insights. I hope this session helped the attendees, understand how Rapids can deliver performance and scale, which is required, for current AI and potential of big data. So I hope this session has been very fruitful for all the attendees. Thank you once again, Saurabh. I'm going to keep the session on for a minute or so for all the all the attendees to take out their presentation and take all the details that Saurav has just put it up on the chat. But thank you so much, Saurav, for doing this great session.
And sorry, just a minute. I just wanted to add one thing, that NVIDIA GTC is happening in November. So please, everyone, please go and register. So I'll link the link of GTC as well. So where it is happening completely free of charge, November 8 to 11, where we'll see a lot of sessions like this and many more insights around data science, data engineering, big data, deep learning, and the best in the industries are coming and speaking. So it will be very end-to-end learning purpose for you. So please, I'll ping in the chat box. I request everyone to register on this GTC website, and in case of any issues, they can always reach out to me again. So this is the GTC link as well. Thank you.
Indeed, it's that time of the year for NVIDIA. I mean, great. We all were looking for the GTC for this year, but it's indeed going to be really great. So attendees, please log into this link. It's free of cost. It would be a great learning session for all. So hope you all to see you there. And thank you once again, Saurav.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.